With the military defeat of the Sioux in the Great Sioux War in 1876, it spelled the beginning of the end of the Sioux way of life. And this happened for two reasons. One was the government's reservation policy, putting the Sioux onto reservations, and the other was the destruction of the buffalo. In 1840, there were 13 million buffalo roaming the plains, and we know how important, how essential the buffalo were to the Sioux way of life. But as more white men came onto the plains, the more buffalo hunters came onto the plains, and they wanted the buffalo for their hide, especially, and for their tongues. And with rifles and with better weaponry, they could kill huge numbers of buffalo. There is some suggestion that a lot of this ammunition as well was actually provided by the US government as a way of destroying the Sioux way of life. There would be special trains laid on by the train companies which would carry hunters onto the plains into herds of buffalo. They'd shoot buffalo from the train windows. There'd be special carriages for them to put the carcasses on afterwards. Such was the extent of this destruction that by 1885 there was practically no wild buffalo left on the plains. Such was extermination. Now this posed a huge problem for the Sioux. Clearly that was their main source of food, but it was their main source of their society as well. No longer did men and women have separate roles. No longer did this young warrior band have a purpose anymore. So when they were forced to live on the reservations, already there was this great depression with young men having no way to prove themselves, having no way to show their bravery, and also having no wealth as well, because the buffalo was the foundation of their economy too. The Dawes Allotment Act actually said to the Sioux, well, I think it's about time that you became farmers, and they said that each Sioux could have an allotment of land. But of course many Sioux turned this down. They didn't believe in farming. They believed it was tearing up your mother's breast, because they believed the land couldn't belong to anybody. And that land they didn't claim was given to white homesteaders. So the actual reservations were shrunk and shrunk and shrunk throughout this period. Also, the land they got was often very, very poor quality, and not being very skilled farmers either, they often had to rely on handouts of food from the American army, which was dealt with by Indian agents who were usually white people who were often incredibly corrupt and took bribes and sold the food elsewhere, and further making the Sioux's lives miserable. And what compounded it all is that on the reservations, their children were offered an education, a good American Christian education. If they refused to send their children to these boarding schools, they wouldn't get any food. And so the idea was that they would educate the next generation of Native Americans to be white Christians, and so destroy the Plains Indians' way of life. In this climate of hopelessness, a spiritual leader called Wovoka started the ghost dance, believing that if they danced, then the buffalo would rise again and all the white people would be killed. This strange dance that they did scared the authorities and ordered it to stop. One great Sioux leader, Bigfoot, who was one of the leaders of the ghost dance, was to be arrested, and in the skirmish leading up to his arrest, both him and his band were massacred. And so ended the Sioux attempts